She had a different name before the palace: Hadassah, a Hebrew name, a Jewish name, the name her cousin Mordecai gave her, the name she carried through the grief of losing both parents, the name attached to everything she actually was. And when the king's officials came through Susa collecting beautiful young women for the royal harem, that name disappeared. Esther entered the palace. We read that transition in a single verse and move on, but stop there for a moment, because what just happened is not a small thing. A young woman in a foreign empire, already displaced, already orphaned, already navigating a world that was not built for her, walks into the most powerful and dangerous institution in her world and is immediately instructed to erase the part of herself most likely to get her killed. And she does it. Deliberately. Without protest. Most people read that as fear. It is not fear. It is the most sophisticated psychological move in the entire book. Strategic assimilation is as old as power itself. Every person who has ever walked into a room where they did not belong by the room's own definition has faced the same calculation. How much of myself do I reveal, and when, and to whom, and at what cost? Esther runs that calculation perfectly. She enters an environment she does not control, surrounded by people whose values, loyalties, and triggers she does not yet know, inside a power structure that has already demonstrated its capacity for casual violence. Vashti was removed from the queenship for a single act of public defiance. The message of that precedent is not subtle. This is not a palace where difference is celebrated. This is a palace where difference is managed, contained, or eliminated. So Esther watches. She learns. She maps the environment with the patience of someone who understands that influence requires proximity, and proximity requires admission, and admission requires that you do not announce your threat level at the door. This is not cowardice. This is intelligence gathering dressed as compliance. Esther 2:15 tells us something revealing. When her turn comes to go before the king, she asks for nothing beyond what Haggai, the royal attendant, suggests. Every other woman is loading up on jewelry, perfumes, accessories, making her case as loudly as possible. Esther defers to the insider. She is still in information collection mode, reading the room, learning who holds the real currency before she spends any of her own. She wins the king's favor not by being the loudest or the most adorned. She wins it by being the most attuned. And that attunement is only possible because she chose strategic silence over premature disclosure. There is a version of this happening in every corporate boardroom, every new job, every unfamiliar social hierarchy today. The instinct when you enter a space that was not designed for you is to either overperform your difference as a declaration or bury it entirely as a surrender. Esther refuses both options. She files the identity away. Not forever, not with shame, but with timing. She is not hiding who she is. She is controlling when it becomes relevant. That distinction is everything. But we have to be honest about what that costs. Code switching. The psychological labor of adjusting your language, your presentation, your entire performed self, depending on the power dynamics of the room, is not free. Research consistently shows that prolonged identity suppression elevates cortisol levels, increases decision fatigue, and erodes the sense of internal coherence that stable mental health requires. You cannot maintain two versions of yourself indefinitely without the seams beginning to show. Esther carries Hadassah inside the palace for years. Years of monitoring every word, calibrating every interaction, holding the most essential fact about herself in permanent suspension. The banquets, the protocols, the performance of belonging in a world that would expel her if it knew the truth. All of it running simultaneously with the private self that Mordecai tends from outside the gate. This is the part of the story nobody preaches about. The daily friction of the mask. The slow accumulation of micro-decisions. Do I speak? Do I stay silent? Do I correct that? Do I laugh at that? Each one small, each one manageable, each one adding weight to a structure that was never designed to be permanent. And here is where the modern parallel lands hardest. Because millions of people are living Esther's pre-Chapter 4 life right now, navigating institutions built by other people, for other people, with other people in mind, performing fluency in a cultural language that is not their native tongue, storing their real name somewhere safer than the room they are currently in. The question the Book of Esther refuses to answer cheaply is this: when does strategic assimilation stop being a tool and start becoming a trap? Before we get to the breaking point, if this is hitting close to home, drop a comment. Have you ever had to hide a part of yourself to get into a room? Tell me about it. And if you are not subscribed yet, join us. We bring this kind of depth to Scripture every single week. Now back to Esther. Here is the paradox at the center of Esther's story that most people miss entirely. The mask is not the compromise. The mask is the mechanism. Esther could not have saved her people from outside the palace. She could not have accessed Xerxes from the street, could not have challenged Haman from a distance, could not have reversed an irrevocable royal decree from a position of zero institutional leverage. The proximity she needed to do the thing only she could do was only available through the assimilation she had practiced. She uses the system's own architecture against it. She does not storm the throne room. She does not issue a public declaration. She hosts a banquet, then another banquet. She operates entirely within the language of the culture she has spent years learning. The etiquette, the timing, the soft power of hospitality in a court where access is the most valuable commodity. When she finally makes her move, it lands precisely because she has built the relational infrastructure to make it land. This is the difference between selling out and buying in. Selling out is surrendering your values to belong. Buying in is learning the grammar of a system well enough to eventually rewrite one of its sentences. Esther never stops being Hadassah on the inside. She learns to speak Susa fluently enough to say something in that language that Susa has never said before. The insider who still carries the outsider's memory is the most dangerous kind of advocate. Not because they are bitter, because they are fluent and they remember what fluency cost them. Mordecai's words in Esther 4:14 are among the most quoted in Scripture. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? But read the verse before it. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jewish people from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. This is not a gentle nudge. This is a confrontation. Mordecai is telling Esther that the safety she has purchased through years of careful concealment is an illusion. Haman's decree does not stop at the palace gate. The mask will not protect her when the edict comes to collect. The question is no longer whether her identity will be exposed. It is whether she will choose the moment or have the moment chosen for her. And Esther, the woman who has spent years calculating every move, makes the most uncalculated statement of her life. If I perish, I perish. 3 days of fasting. Complete suspension of the performance. She is not strategizing here. She is surrendering the outcome to something larger than the strategy. And when she walks into the king's court uninvited, risking execution by protocol alone, she is carrying something no amount of palace training could have given her. She is carrying the weight of every person whose survival depends on whether she speaks. The hidden identity does not disappear at that moment. It detonates. Controlled, perfectly timed, aimed directly at the structure that would have destroyed it. I am a Jew, and the man who wants us dead is this man, right here, at your table, years of proximity. One sentence. The whole architecture shifts. So what do we do with this in 2026? Here is the framework Esther's story actually gives us. Not a prescription for permanent hiding, not a celebration of code switching as a spiritual discipline, but a 3-part rhythm. Assess the room before you reveal yourself in it. Use the access you gain to build something real, not just to survive. And know in advance what the threshold is, the line beyond which staying silent stops being tactical and starts being complicit. The tragedy is not that Esther hid. The tragedy would have been if she had hidden forever. The mask was always meant to be temporary. The influence was always meant to serve something beyond the individual, and the moment Hadassah stepped back through the surface, "I am Esther, and this is who I am, and this is what is at stake," that was not the end of the strategy. That was the strategy arriving at its purpose. The deepest question this story leaves us with is not whether you should ever hide parts of yourself to navigate a world that was not built for you. Sometimes you will have to. The question is whether, in all the years of careful assimilation, you kept your real name somewhere safe. Whether, when the moment comes, you still know how to say it. If this gave you language for something you have been navigating, share it with someone who is currently in their palace season, learning the room, waiting for their moment. They need to know the waiting is not wasted. Subscribe for more, and we will see you in the next one.